You're listening to Ride Along, EMT School. I'm Mike.
And I'm Max. We're two students navigating EMT school, bringing you along week by week.
And I'm Jonathan, a paramedic bringing real-world perspective.
Join us as we share the lessons, challenges, and stories from EMT school, and hear insights from those already living the EMS life. Welcome to the Ride Along. Well, welcome everybody to the Ride Along EMT School podcast.
We're back.
That's my cheesy like 90s
like
announcer voice.
I'm a fan.
Like do you remember Nickelodeon like Double Dare?
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
a Casio boombox.
Like we want you to be excited about this thing that sucks, but we want you to be excited.
Well, some of that stuff, I
was
mean,
okay.
nowadays would seem really
Oh, yeah.
like lame.
Yes.
Like, although you can't tell me you wouldn't have loved like a Huffy bike.
I had a Huffy bike.
See? Like they got some cool shit on that show.
Yeah.
And then there was some stuff on there that was like really like a Tiddlywinks board or something.
whatever,
I don't know, like some weird shit. Like some of the things were like, you can get this giant boombox and it has a CD player.
Or this Monopoly game.
Yeah, or Monopoly, Nickelodeon edition, like, Universal Studios, Florida. Oh man,
I want to know how many people had stock in the company that made this slime. That's what I want to know.
Oh, slime.
The amount of slime that was used on that show.
Do you remember GAC?
Yeah.
Like you had the little star-shaped thing, and you could push in it, and it makes fart noises and stuff.
Well, when my one daughter was at a certain age, like slime came back, and like they had these slime kits. They can make their own slime.
Yeah,
it covered my house.
they have slime stores now.
Yes.
Did you know this?
Yes.
Yeah, like my daughter
whole
had
thing.
my daughter had a birthday party at a slime store. Like it has nothing to do with Nickelodeon, which I was very disappointed about. Like if you're gonna have a slime store, there should be a fucking physical challenge.
Yes.
Or a some sort of large apparatus that I have to dive through into some form of
and just the parents, like not the kids.
Yeah, no, they can
hell
go
with the kids.
They can go have their own fun in the whatchamacallit, like in the slime store.
If you dive into this slime, you get 5% off.
Yeah.
I'd be in it in a heartbeat.
See, I always wanted to be on that show, Guts.
Guts.
You guys remember? You remember Guts?
Yeah.
Do you have it? Guts. Yeah.
It was basically American Gladiator for kids.
Yes. The aggro crag with and
when,
Mo.
when TV was good.
Do you remember Mo? Let's go to the videotape Mo.
It's back when cable TV was original and good.
Yes. And it was something that was like, it was purely 90s. It was like this kind of thing that coming about. And then like, to be a kid and have your own thing that you could watch, like Nickelodeon was the best.
Yeah.
Now here's the real question. Guts. Okay. You could choose one of the three. Double Dare,
Okay.
Guts, or Legends of the Hidden Temple.
I got to go Double Dare. I was such a fan of Double Dare.
I mean, Double Dare's
Man,
cool.
And they had the whole maze thing at the end that they had to go run through,
the obstacle course.
Yeah. Double Dare. It's got to be Double Dare.
Probably Legends of the Hidden Temple. Honestly, like Guts was great, but Legends of the Hidden Temple. Oh man, it was a cool show to watch. It was definitely more eerie.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like when you said Guts, I'm like, I think I can throw one out there that he might pick over that. Cause like Legends of the Hidden Temple, come on.
Yeah, Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Okay,
for sure.
Were you young enough to be able to enjoy Chuck E. Cheese when it had like the cheese factory in it?
The Cheese Factory?
Oh my Lord. Yeah, you might be too young for that. So they had this thing called the Cheese Factory, which is basically this hidden area in Chuck E. Cheese that you had to go through. It was this dark obstacle course with like black lights and things. And there were secret doors. You could get lost in there for hours.
I don't think that's a real thing.
It is.
I think you're like, you're
100%.
hallucinating something from Chuck E. Cheese's.
Nope. And you were supposed to just go through once. No one did that. So there was like dozens of kids that were just messing around inside of the Cheese Factory.
Huh.
It was awesome.
I've never heard of the Cheese Factory.
The Cheese Factory was great. If you're old enough, you might remember.
Oh, man. Well, welcome to the random start. We did not script any of this, obviously.
It just comes
natural. We just roll with it.
Yeah, exactly.
We like talking about all the old things Because we're old. Well, Max and I are old.
Yeah, I am old.
Max is really
true.
old.
I am really old.
I'm pretty old. Jonathan is
getting there.
Yeah.
Getting older.
Yeah.
You know, you're not in your 20s anymore, right?
Well, so here's the thing. It's like I can't tell if I'm getting older or it's been my like EMS lifestyle that has made my knees hurt.
The answer to that question is yes.
Yeah,
yes.
There's some hard miles in EMS. Like,
yes, there are.
Like some of the people we roll with are like, apparently they're like in their early 20s. I'm like, no, you're 40. Like you smoke like 8 packs a day.
Yes.
You got like, that's your third can of Zyn.
Yeah. God, the amount of, I was in the ambulance house and I had to empty the trash.
Oh.
And like the amount of caffeine and nicotine pouches that was in that trash bag was bizarre.
Yep.
Like, I don't even want to know how many cans that was.
Yeah, those just accelerate them. It's like putting nitro in your car,
yes.
Like it's just gonna
it's
blow
all
the
gonna be
engine
just
sooner.
fine. Yeah, what's the worst that can happen?
Sure
Are you still volunteering?
Yeah, I did a shift Friday night to Saturday.
Any calls?
One BS call where we sat in the ambulance while the fire guys did something. Like
you mean BLS call?
No, BS, complete and utter bullshit. Like it was like an assist, a medical assist for a fire, and we rolled up, and I'm like, okay, we doing anything? He said, nah, we're just gonna sit here. I'm like, so we don't need to go in there or help them, right? No, you're good. So we sat there for 10 minutes and left. That was the entirety of my 12-hour shift.
I had one last night.
Oh,
it was a altered mental status call. Nothing really wrong with the. She was a bit hypoxic. We did find that out in the ambulance. I was like, hey, that SpO2 is supposed to be above 91, so let's give her some oxygen. And that's really all we wound up being able to do. But she was on like medical marijuana, and she's been drinking and had some med interactions. And like the son who was living with her was like, hey, we should probably. Like she's confused and really, she couldn't answer. She was not alert and oriented, could not answer any of the A&O questions. So, look at us talking about EMS calls.
Like it's just natural.
Like it's what we do now.
What you do, right?
See what you did to us, Jonathan.
Now, was this a mass?
I believe I was invited to
service,
join this podcast. Like this was going to happen either way.
It might have, but it's more fun to blame you.
Yes. I blame him. This is all his fault. Like there's no getting out of it.
That's fair to
That's fair to blame
him.
I think so.
This is all my fault.
It is all his fault.
Extreme ownership.
Exactly.
Oh, are you? I do have one question for you, Max. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of tonight's episode, are you an EMT yet?
I'm not.
When's your test?
The 26th.
The 26th. So that's
next week.
So a week Thursday. Or so from now.
Yeah.
All right, we got to put you through the ringer. We're gonna have to ask you some questions.
I have been using Pocket Prep. It has been. I love Pocket Prep. I really do. I really love the immediate feedback, and then the ability to look through and the explanations and everything, even on the ones you get right. I love it. I can't say enough good things about it.
So we got 1 week left, and then you're gonna pass that test.
And then I'll fail, and then
no, you're gonna do fine.
I will get 71%. Because
that's all you need.
My average is at the 71 in any standardized test I've ever taken since I was like 5. And then I will be looking for employment.
Well, that and we'll be celebrating.
Yes.
I think that's going to be a big, obviously we celebrated graduating, but
one of our fellow students is retaking his test the same day as me.
Oh, is he?
He is indeed.
Oh, well, we'll have to encourage him too, because there's no shame in that.
He got really close. He got thrown on a couple subjects that he realized after.
It's hard.
So
it's a hard test.
It is one of the hardest tests. Yeah, it's one of the hardest tests. For the longest time, it was the hardest test that I ever took was my EMT test. Yeah. And I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it. Testing is its own skill. Mm-hmm. Learning how to answer the questions the way they are supposed to be answered is its own skill set.
And I absolutely suck at that. There's one of my skill sets that is not fantastic. So, I'm very I will be very happy one way or the other when that test is done. Because if I have to reevaluate, re-examine, then that's what I'll do. And when I pass, I'll be happy to never have to do that again.
Well, yeah.
Ever.
I have a lot of
again.
respect for people that come at it a second time because that means you actually want it. Like I can't even tell you probably how many people there are that like take it the first time, like, well, I guess I'm not going to do that anymore. And it discourages
that's not
them.
happening. I mean,
no, you should.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
And I will say it's really hard. It was harder than the ground school test I had to take to get my pilot's license.
Yeah.
Like that was like you're in an airplane thousands of feet up in the air, and like you're responsible for not killing people from plummeting from the heavens, right? Like this is harder than that.
Yeah.
Like the because you're responsible for other people's health. Like that means something. So it's hard, and for anybody out there who's had some trouble like passing the first time, you've got this. Like we know you've got, like, it's a rough test. I've seen a lot of posts from people on Facebook saying like, oh, I got so close. I got the just barely under passing. Cause I guess when you don't pass, they give you a report, but when you pass, they don't.
Right.
Yeah. You don't get any feedback other than you passed. If you do in fact pass, but
it's go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's just it is a tough test. But like Mike was saying, look, you've just got to, figure out what you need to work on. And most of the time when you're in there taking the test, you'll figure out, this is an area that I was a little weak on. I need to study up on. So and like Mike said, we believe in you. We know that you all can do it. We just want to send all the encouragement. If you're about to test and you're listening to this episode, we know you can do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can. Because if we can, you can.
Yeah.
So trust us. Like we're
100%.
We're
100%.
Yeah. Like we're the bottom of the barrel. You've got this. Like,
but
we're old and
exactly.
decrepit.
I'm getting ready for my testing, but you being the overachiever you are, you've been doing some things too.
Have I?
Didn't you pass your skiing test for ski patrol?
I did pass a ski patrol. Okay. So like I did pass my eval for the local hill that I'm looking to become a ski patroller at. Hopefully that'll be like next winter, I think is most of the stuff that happens for that. But then I went on a ski trip and then hurt myself skiing.
Well,
so like, it's kind of like,
a deflation.
A little deflating. I need that in my life every now and then to be like,
the point is like, you were like,
humbled.
There's no way I can pass this. It's not going to happen. And you were like, you know what? I passed my evaluation. So next winter, you might see Mike hitting the slopes trying to save your life.
I think they were being charitable. I think they're like, this guy, he's nice.
He's got a great beard.
Yeah, it's got a great beard, but man, he cannot ski. Like, I don't know.
There are pictures that prove otherwise.
I did get a pretty cool picture.
It's a pretty damn cool picture.
But yeah, so like we're all doing stuff.
And even Jonathan,
yes,
he has something in the works.
Yeah, I decided this past week that I'm gonna start pursuing a critical care certification.
Nice.
So that's probably gonna happen in the fall at some point.
Nice.
So I'm getting all the preliminary stuff ready to sign up for that. So
awesome, man.
The big thing is there's so many different avenues in EMS and fire that you can go down and pursue, and there are opportunities to never stop learning and never stop growing if that's what you want to do.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So and you should. So
that's awesome, dude.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, it seems like that's a bit of a commitment. It's I think almost as much of a commitment as what Max and I just did for EMT school.
Yeah,
like
I
in
think
terms
more
of hours and cost.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You go through like the course as more of a prep thing, and then doing that allows you to sit for the certification test.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not necessarily as connected as much as like an EMT school type deal, right? Like I could still take additional training after that to get ready for that test.
Nice.
But yeah, so it's more of like a prep course than anything else. But yeah,
nice.
That's awesome, dude.
I'm proud of you, buddy. Like always pushing. Like we're never gonna catch up to you.
Hey, don't say that. You might.
Hey, eventually he's gonna buy a helicopter, and we're gonna need a medic for it.
That's
so,
true. Yeah,
that
would be cool if we were like a 3-person flight team.
Fucking A, baby.
Oh man. So,
man, it's.
I'm not getting a helicopter. Those two idiots.
Well, okay, so we're obviously got so much to talk about. We love hanging out with all you guys and telling everybody what we've been up to. However, we do have an agenda for tonight's episode, and it's a special one that we should really not overshadow because it's sponsored.
It is sponsored.
We have a really great company that has partnered with us to support this episode and our tools of the trade for tonight as well.
Yes.
And we may have mentioned them before, but this episode is brought to you by Compression Works. As EMT students, we've learned about all types of bleeding control, direct pressure, wound packing, trauma dressings, tourniquets. But what about the bleeds that standard methods just can't reach? Today, that capability has extended even further with the introduction of the abdominal tourniquet known as the AAJT-S, the Abdominal, Aortic, and Junctional Tourniquet Stabilized, cleared by the FDA for 4 distinct application sites: the abdomen, axilla, inguinal area, and for the immobilization of pelvic fractures. By introducing abdominal tourniquet capability into the pre-hospital environment, the AAJT-S fills a critical gap in hemorrhage control, applying external aortic compression, extending life-saving stabilization when and where it's needed most. Designed for rapid deployment, the abdominal tourniquet is now used by EMS, military, and trauma teams to support early hemorrhage control and improve patient stabilization prior to definitive care. To learn more about how it works and why it's being incorporated into emergency medicine more and more each day, visit compressionworks.com. Compression Works. Hemorrhage stops here. I'm pointing to my awesome sweatshirt. And make sure that you turn in this week, so 2 days after this episode airs, so by the time you listen to it, it'll probably be hitting the airwaves, our bonus interview with Dr. John Kraushorn, who is the inventor of the AAJT-S, where we go through the science and the real-world applications and how the AAJT-S was developed.
I'm looking forward to that for sure.
He's a great guy. Jonathan and I got to sit with him, and it was a fantastic experience.
I did not.
It was a great interview.
Well,
it was a great interview.
Yeah.
I had to work.
You miss all of our interviews.
Yeah, because I have to work. It keeps getting in the way.
You missed our interview that just aired.
Yes.
So if you're listening to this one, you probably see that we had a interview that popped up with EMS 2020,
which really hurts.
Chris and Spencer over there are awesome guys.
Yes.
Had so much fun with them. That interview was amazing.
Yeah.
Probably because Max wasn't there.
Yeah, I think the success of it was clearly because I wasn't there.
5 would be a crap.
Yes, exactly.
They did say hi. They mentioned you by name in that interview.
It's because of the beard.
But yeah, we've got lots to talk about tonight because, and the reason why, and we've been sitting on this for a while.
We have.
And really, this is exciting because we're finally in the trauma block.
We're in our wheelhouse, people. We finally have gotten here.
You know, the most exciting stuff about EMS, like obviously the medical stuff is interesting. I think I've learned the most in EMT training going through medical emergencies.
Yes.
And understanding vital signs and how all those things kind of play together and understanding when patients are sick. But now we're in the
keep the red stuff in.
Yeah, we're into the high adrenaline stuff now,
which is where I calm down.
Trauma.
Yeah, my pulse slows. I calm down.
Yeah, Max is weird. What are you gonna do? You know, we knew this.
If they have the flu, I'm worried. If they're bleeding out, okay, I know how to fix that. That's easy.
So we're finally in the trauma block. We've got like 5 or 6 episodes of just trauma. Yeah. We're going to be talking about all the traumatic things. Tonight is the Mac Daddy of them all. The one that we probably look for the most, bleeding and shock.
Yes.
That's tonight's episode titled I'm Bleeding Me.
Dun, 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 dun. It's a great song.
It's a
such good
great song.
It's one of their best songs.
I listened to it probably 5 times yesterday
Oh, nice.
while I was trying to figure out the names for the episode.
You're not singing yet, so it's very disappointing. I have to say.
Yeah, well, it's a slower song, you know, but I also can't. I'm making my way to something.
That's such a good song.
Making my way to something better.
Oh, whoa, ho, ho.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. No. But Metallica obviously is close to both of our hearts.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But yes, Bleeding and Shock. And then we have, after this, I believe the run that we're going to be going through is like soft tissue trauma, burns. Musculoskeletal trauma with where we're partnering with our friends over at Sam Medical for some stuff in that one, and tools of the trade. We got facial and facial, neck and spinal trauma, chest and abdominal trauma. Like there's a bunch of episodes that we're going to be doing in a row.
Well, there's a lot to each one of those sections.
Yeah.
So we're going to be able to go in deep and not, instead of having to like gloss over it, trying to put it into one episode, which would be insanity.
Yes, it would be insanity.
And it deserves the time. It deserves the time to be flushed out and discussed and gone over.
Yeah, and there's nuance to it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
However, I think it's really important that we're starting with this one,
Yes.
which is Bleeding and Shock, because I think in all trauma, it is something that we come back to.
Yeah.
Right? And we'll get into this some when we start talking about primary assessment and how Bleeding and Shock apply, like, what we're looking for in that primary assessment, but it's always there. It's the first thing that we're looking for is bleeding and shock, which I think is a good segue into this week's
medical term
of the week, which is a term that we've never mentioned once before on this podcast.
Not one time ever.
It's called shock. Yes. I know it's a very obscure medical term.
Yes.
I had to go into the index of the book. Is
that where you grab the wire the wrong way, or?
Yeah, it's exactly. It's when the red and the black ones get tangled together, and you.
Yeah, exactly.
We're talking about shock, which we may have mentioned
a couple of times.
Typically in the medical term of the week, we like to introduce something that we haven't talked about before, but this is a little bit different because we find that it's important. It's a common theme, the idea of shock and how it applies to pretty much all trauma. Mm-hmm. So we're doing a little bit of a review on shock tonight. So for those of us that don't remember, shock is a life-threatening state of inadequate tissue perfusion, meaning the tissues in the body are not getting enough oxygen or blood to stay alive, right? The cells are not getting what they need. And why does that happen? Like, why is it important? Well, when cells aren't getting enough oxygen, when they're not functioning like they normally would, they switch into a different type of functioning called anaerobic metabolism. That happens like when you have extreme physical stress, like when you're exercising related, you build up like lactic acid.
Yes.
Because your body, like when you do that, your body's not getting enough oxygen to those muscles, but you're doing it on purpose, right? You're not getting enough oxygen and it's not on purpose. So all that stuff starts building up. You get lactic acid buildup, and you get what's called metabolic acidosis, and that's bad.
Yeah.
The acid levels in the body rising, not good. Those things start leading to organ shutdown and a bunch of other bad things that happen. But it's just because the cells begin to fail, right? So not getting perfusion, that's the same thing. That is shock. Leads to a systematic shutdown
of everything.
Of organs. Yep. Now this can be caused by shock has 4 main avenues, right? The one that we're going to probably wind up talking about the most, especially in this episode, hypovolemic. What is hypovolemic shock?
Lack of blood or fluid.
Lack of blood, like hypo meaning low, volemic meaning volume.
Yep.
So low volume of blood.
You only have so much in your body. When you lose too much, it's a problem.
Yeah. And
we can even go into a subcategory of that hypovolemic shock in hemorrhagic shock, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Specifically, a lack of that oxygenated blood.
Right.
Exactly. And that means, your whole, like your body has now experienced probably a hole somewhere that was not designed with,
Yeah.
where the blood is now leaving the body.
Yeah.
Or leaving the spaces that it's supposed to be. And we'll get to that
Correct.
in tonight's episode too. But it essentially means like your blood vessels, your circulatory system is a closed system. It has to be. Everything needs to stay in there. That's why you have blood pressure. It's because it's a closed system, right? As soon as something in there opens, bad things start happening.
Yes.
And that blood starts going wherever the path of least resistance is, out of the hole. And all of a sudden, you then start experiencing hemorrhagic shock.
Yeah, it's a system that's constantly under pressure. So if you have a leak in there, it's going to keep on pumping.
Yep. Now we could still have shock from a few other reasons. So if it's not because there isn't enough blood or fluid in the system, it could be because of the thing that pumps it itself.
The engine,
the heart, right?
Yep.
And that when we're referring to problems with the pump, that is cardiogenic shock.
Right.
Now, that can also be from trauma.
Sure.
Right?
Blunt force
trauma, like injury to the heart itself, that getting hurt.
Knocking it out of rhythm.
However, I think the cardiogenic shock is something we think of most with probably one of the other big terms that we talk about in EMS.
Right. Which is?
MIs, right?
Yeah.
It's a problem with the pump, right? Yeah. And that could be like CHF as well. Congestive heart failure. I always want to say chronic heart failure.
So do I.
But it's congestive heart failure. Okay, so we got a problem with the fluid, a problem with the pump. The third type is a problem with the transport method.
Right. The
distribution network. Right?
Right.
So then we have distributive shock.
Right.
Now, what are some types of what does distributive shock mean?
I mean, it's when the vessels when they compress instead of being dilated and allowing pressure to flow
or release, right? Yeah. Like you get like everything just opens up so much, like it just relaxes, like the vasodilation. The vessels kind of go, bleh, and they just get real lazy and they have no tone, and all of a sudden your closed vessel, which has a pressure to it, right,
is now wide open,
is now a lot bigger than it used to be, and you don't have the pressure in there anymore.
Exactly.
And without pressure, you can't move fluid.
Yes. So
it all starts making sense when you start thinking about this as like a mechanical device.
It is.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, 100% is.
So the distributive shock, those are things when like you're super sick, that comes into play too. So like septic shock, like the systematic issues. Those are the things that make your blood vessels go, like just like, I'm tired. I don't feel like being tight anymore. Like, it's like all of us when we get older, we get loose and saggy. So like that's also like anaphylaxis.
Yes.
Right.
One of those things that really like loses tone in the vessels. It just like it gets seepy, right? And I think we even talked about like those are actual defense mechanisms that are built into the body. But the problem is that when you're really, really sick and those things are happening on a systemic level, it's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
Which is bad because if you have like your vessels losing tone and fluid leaking out of those vessels on a systemic level, it means that you're losing all of that all at once.
Right.
And distributive shock can also be like neurogenic related, where your brain is just your brain's telling your distribution system to like do whatever you want. Like we're gonna get conflicting signals. You know?
Usually involves some sort of injury to the central nervous system, right?
Exactly.
Spinal cord injuries can cause this. So it's actually the neurogenic shock is one of the rarest seen in the field, but it's a very, very serious form of shock when it is occurring. So it's one of the things that will not tolerate an extended treatment and assessment time, right? It's you gotta be on top of it. So
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the fourth, category of shock is obstructive.
Yep.
Something getting in the way, which when I first started learning about it, I actually would get confused with cardiogenic shock, because cardiogenic shock, you think of like, oh, it throws a clot into the vessel and then that's blockage of a vessel, but that's not, and that's like obstructive of that vessel. Well, not really. That's because that's a problem with the pump.
Yes.
And you can't pump stuff around. So that's cardiogenic shock. Obstructive is more about when you have things going on that may cause pressure into other things.
Right.
So like a tension pneumothorax is a good example. Where you have a sucking chest wound, you get a lot of pressure inside of the chest cavity that builds up and pushes against the other stuff, like pushes against the heart,
the lungs,
pushes against the great vessels, and basically obstructs the flow of blood from an outside means.
Yeah,
correct.
And there's other things too that fall into that category, like tamponade. And pulmonary embolism as well. So like those things are very closely related to trauma, because those aren't necessarily the direct effect of the trauma, but it's the injury causes something else that then develops from that trauma.
Right.
So for instance, a sucking chest wound from say a gunshot wound, a stab, or even like an impalement, that can then cause a tension pneumo, which then causes obstructive shock. And then you might have other things happening at the same time too. So that trauma, this is why trauma is really scary to me, and kind of, why people think it's exciting, and because there's a lot going on at once. Because that same trauma that's causing an obstructive shock in one form, where it's causing a tension pneumo, could have also caused a hemorrhage. Sure. So someone's losing blood in one way and also being squeezed in another way, where you've got multiple things happening because trauma is complicated. Yeah. Or can be, I should say. Those are the 4 types of shock. This is our review of shock in this episode. And really the last thing to kind of just take away from it is that there are 2 like phases of shock. Right. And we this is like week 1 stuff for us. Now it seems like old hat, right? Yeah. Compensation. Right. So you have compensated shock and you have decompensated shock. So compensation means, hey, your body's
doing what it can to keep working.
Yeah. It's surviving. Yeah. Right.
If blood pressure is low, it's raising your heart rate.
Exactly.
Trying to get things back up again. It's doing all these things to try and, pulling blood from your extremities to try and get back to the core, because that's the important part. Your arms, your legs, they're not as important.
You breathe okay, there's not enough oxygen getting to the body. All right, let's breathe faster.
Yep.
Oh, there's not enough blood getting around. Let's pump faster.
Yep.
Like your body's doing what it needs to do. But then if you do not, if it does not get better, that's where we start getting into decompensation. And that's where that's the scary stuff right there. Yeah. So the biggest kind of watch out for decompensated shock is going to be the hypotension. That hypotension being the late stage of okay, everything is failing and the blood pressure starts falling, because that's a sign that everything is just not working anymore. And blood pressure is really a good indicator of health. Yeah. Right. Is there enough pressure in the system to keep blood moving? Because as soon as that blood pressure starts dropping below 90 systolic, things will not move well.
No. And unless you do some major interventions, it's going to keep on trending that way.
Yeah. And the low blood pressure usually can present as, you could tell by weak pulse. That can also lead to lack of perfusion in the brain. So you'll get hypoxia. Hypoxia leads to altered mental status. So this is when people start, seeing things, acting weird, people, get altered when they're about to die, right? So those are the things that you really need to look out for. And hopefully we're doing all the things that we can do to help with bleeding and shock
and
before.
to keep it compensated, not decompensated.
Exactly. That's our goal.
Yeah.
Stay compensated. Compensation is key. But yeah, so that's shock, right? Like we just bring it back around to where we were in like week 2.
Yeah. And to understand like no matter what trauma you're walking into, no matter what trauma you're dealing with, it doesn't even have to be a physical trauma.
Yeah.
You have to address shock. You have to.
Yeah. And this is something that was bread and butter for us even before we started doing EMT stuff, where it's like every injury you do, especially a trauma, something where somebody is injured, treat for shock.
Yep.
You know, like everything you do, make sure it ends with treating for shock. And like we learned in here, especially from the EMS side, there's things that we do almost with every patient, you know, lying them down, supine helps them, helps keep the blood flowing, keeps blood to the brain, right? So that's, unless they have trouble breathing, we know that,
right?
You know, then put them into semi-Fowler or whatever position of comfort they have for breathing. But it's going to be better if you lay them down, keep them warm.
Yep.
Avoid hypothermia, right?
Yeah, get the back of that ambulance uncomfortably warm for you, so it helps them.
Because they're going to be naked.
Yep.
They're going to be trauma naked. Yep. And you want to keep that space as warm as possible because, well, you know, in the middle of winter, I'd rather have that heat blasting if I'm covered in, you know, blood and naked again.
Yeah, like every call that I've been on, the one thing I do before I get out of the ambulance is crank the heat up in the back. Like the very last thing I do before I get out. That way that space is ready to go once we get them in.
Yep. And then along with keeping them warm and lying them down so that they can perfuse better, is giving them oxygen.
Yep.
It's the one thing that as EMTs we have at our disposal that, you know, generally before we did not. And that just helps with, you know, keeping those oxygen levels higher. More oxygen means more perfusion, which means you're delaying that decompensated shock a little bit longer, hopefully long enough to get them to a trauma center. Yeah.
Or if you're lucky, you're going to get them out of compensation.
Maybe, you know, maybe the body recovers enough that they're not in shock anymore, but we're just, you know, on the EMS side, we're considering everything at that point to be, if they're in if they had trauma, treat them for shock, get them to a trauma center. Right. And then the last little bit in here is the things that we always reiterate on the EMS side, especially as EMTs, you know, make sure that we're getting them to definitive care quickly.
Yep.
And considering ALS.
Yeah.
Because, you know, while trauma is kind of like bread and butter for everything, there's still more stuff that paramedics can do.
Sure.
You know, especially if there's a compromised airway, getting fluids back in them. Although we don't necessarily give fluids nowadays for like hypovolemic shock, right? You can give fluids to raise blood pressure, but if you've lost blood, just putting in fluids isn't going to replace blood, right?
Yeah, whole blood's always going to be your better option, or blood products, but whole blood being the preferred.
You're in a system that has blood products, even better.
Yeah,
like that's the trend. Yeah. I think that's going to be the next 5 or 10 years in EMS, is that proliferating.
Yeah, they mentioned it a few times.
I mean, if you went to EMS World with me, you would have seen
I had,
everybody talking about blood products.
The things I miss.
Yep. But yeah, so shock,
treat,
medical term of the week.
Treat for it.
Yep. So that's where we're starting tonight, because we're gonna be talking about shock probably in all of these episodes. It comes back around.
Yeah, it's going to be the basis of everything that we do. Is treating for that, no matter what the trauma is.
Yes. So, you know, with that, like this episode is shock and bleeding.
Yes.
The red stuff.
Exsanguination.
The blood. And the things that we're kind of starting with is like, and we mentioned this in the medical term of the week, is like the anatomy, the basic systems at play here. You know, the heart, the blood vessels, the blood itself, all those things working together to stay in that closed system.
Yep.
And it's when that system starts breaking down, that's when we have problems. Right?
Yeah, you have these three main components. So you've got the heart, which is that engine that runs things. You got the different vessels, which are the pipes that are moving that oxygenated blood around and the deoxygenated blood back. You've got arteries, which is where you see that pressure bleed where you see the blood pumping out of the body.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the veins, which is not quite as high of a pressure, but you can still get a decent amount of bleeding out of it.
Right. Well, because the arteries come from the heart to the
Correct.
body, right? Like to the main parts of the body. It goes through capillary beds.
Yep.
Where it starts, like it pushes through like a smaller system, so it loses the pressure, and then on the way back to the heart, it goes through the veins.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the veins also have valves.
Yeah.
There's valves in the veins, one-way valves to
That way the blood
keep everything
doesn't go
moving
backwards.
in one direction.
And then you've got the blood, which is basically, that's the fluid that runs through.
Yeah, it's got a bunch of components in it. I mean, the big one being the red blood cells.
Right.
That's the hero of the story. The one, especially when it comes to perfusion, that's the one that carries the oxygen within the blood. But you've got like platelets,
Yep.
plasma,
White blood cells.
a bunch of stuff.
Plasma.
Yeah.
Plasma, yeah.
So like these are the parts, right? These are the things that we're talking about, and they all work together to make sure that we're perfusing. But when those things go wrong,
yes,
there's now this is something that was new to us, Jonathan, and I was curious. I wanted to ask you about the triad of trauma. Was that something like in your terminology?
Yeah, so as far as in EMT school, the lethal trauma triad, not really something talked about at 15 years ago. It may have existed, but that was not something talked about at the EMT level. But my exposure to trauma medicine through the tactical medicine sphere is where I learned about the lethal trauma triad, and then in paramedic school we obviously talked about it as well. But when we start to talk about traumatic injuries where we're bleeding and that sort of thing, it's actually a really important concept to be able to understand, because it is each one of the 3 points plays off of itself, or plays on the other points and creates just kind of like a self-worsening loop that somebody starts to spiral down if we're not careful. So, those 3 points are going to be acidosis or metabolic acidosis, hypothermia, and then coagulopathy, right? Coagulopathy is just the body's ability to clot or its inability to clot based on the circumstances.
An important thing for making sure that blood doesn't keep leaking out of the body.
Yeah, because you kind of needed to patch that hole. I mean, it's a little bit important.
So, we've already kind of touched on that anaerobic state that our bodies go into when they don't have enough oxygen. One of the byproducts of that is that buildup of lactic acid. And until we return to a state of homeostasis, that acidosis is just going to continue to worsen. And so if we think about it, the less that the more that we bleed, the more acidotic we're going to be because we're not getting enough oxygen, and we're not having that blood to take away those waste products back and process all that. In addition, the acidosis directly makes it's twofold. When you're bleeding, you're losing those clotting factors in that blood, which inhibits your ability to stop that bleeding. But then the loss of those clotting factors also is contributed towards by that acidosis. And then, of course, hypothermia. It also worsens the body's ability to clot. And so we see kind of how all three of these things play on each other. It's one of the reasons in trauma medicine we emphasize hypothermia prevention.
Yeah,
right. If we can eliminate one of these, right, we're trying to eliminate a lot of these issues. But
that's the easy one.
Well, I mean,
you hope
in theory, it's easy, right?
Yeah, if you catch it early,
just keep them warm.
Yeah.
Just actively warm them. Yeah. But when we start talking about field environments, it's very difficult. So stopping the bleeding is number one.
Right.
That's the first thing we've got to do is to kind of stop this lethal trauma triad. We've got to stop that bleeding, and then we've also got to keep these people warm. And then we've got to do some supportive care things in relation to the acidosis and the coagulopathy thing, right? If we could replace volume with blood products or whole blood, something that carries oxygenated, oxygen around the body, that would be the best thing.
Because saline doesn't do that.
Right. Saline does not do that. You may have a great blood pressure, but that person is still in and here's the thing about saline. It's got a pH of 5.5, whereas like the normal body pH is 7.35 to 7.45. And, so we're already acidotic when we're giving somebody like normal saline.
You're increasing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You're increasing it. It's acid death juice, pasta water, right? That's
the Kool-Aid.
That's the joke, right? Yeah. So you could have an awesome blood pressure, but that person's not perfusing because they don't have anything to carry oxygenated the oxygen through the blood system or to the bloodstream.
Have either of you guys seen the HBO miniseries Chernobyl?
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It is.
While you were describing the deadly triad of trauma, the thing that flashed through my head is like in the last episode of that miniseries, I forget the dude's name. I think it's like Volkayev or something, like the main guy in the show. He's describing how a nuclear reactor can melt down. And he's like, and he's showing this kind of cascade of when you take away water, this gets hotter. And as it gets hotter, this gets more unstable. Like it's this kind of like, he's showing this unstoppable cascade of calamity basically. And he's describing how Chernobyl, and like, I'm like, this sounds exactly like that. Like,
absolutely.
As the acidosis goes up, the clotting factors get worse. The
clotting factors get worse.
As the body gets colder, this gets worse. And it's just this kind of thing. Like, if you don't stop that, if you don't stop this kind of like domino effect, that's what's spiraling. Right. So it helps with kind of understanding like this deadly triad, the triad of trauma and this was new. I never really understood acidosis or body acidity or metabolic acidosis before we started doing EMT stuff. It wasn't like part of our like medical nomenclature.
Yeah. I mean, I had heard it, but it wasn't presented the way it was, through the instruction through class.
Yeah. Understanding a deeper level.
Yep.
There for a period of time, we were, they were talking about a fourth prong of this. So it went from the triad to a diamond. And that fourth prong was hypocalcemia. And so there's still a bunch of research going on in relation to low calcium in people that are having traumatic or have had traumatic injuries. They're still looking at ways to improve that. And here's kind of one of the things that they looked at. They looked at, okay, well, can we just give calcium in response to this? Like, can we go ahead and give calcium to folks who have had this issue? And so that was one of the things they were pushing, and it's still maybe out there in some protocols. But what they found was that it has not made necessarily as much of an appreciable difference in alleviating that hypocalcemia as they'd hoped. And so again, they're still kind of evaluating it, but essentially that fourth prong does play into all of the
diamond of death.
The lethal trauma diamond. But and here's another kind
sounds
of
like
a little
finishing
tidbit I'll
move
throw
for
out there.
Diamond Dallas Page.
It does. It does.
An additional thing to it is if we're giving blood products, they have a preservative in them, citrate.
Oh yeah.
That citrate essentially eliminates calcium or binds to calcium or binds to receptors of calcium. It does not allow. It actually can induce hypocalcemia. So if we're giving blood products, one of the thoughts was, well, we're going to give it in conjunction with calcium. And so again, it's still out there. There's still a lot of research being done on it. And so it's everything is not completely clear on all of that, right? Because it's still being actively researched, but it is just an additional prong to that. But at the very core of it, if we can, first and foremost, if we can stop the bleeding, that's our starting point. We've got to control that bleeding, and then go through and deal with the other things as we are able. So stopping the bleeding, and then hypothermia prevention, and then we can start to deal with the coagulopathy and the acidosis.
Speaking of stop the bleeding. Don't we know a guy who teaches classes where you can earn a certificate in stop the bleed?
Do we? Do we really? Does he really teach?
Is this a shameless plug?
Does he teach at all anywhere?
I think he does.
He might even have a company, I think.
Yeah. If anybody's out, I could have swore I've gotten a stop the bleed certificate from Iron Forge Consulting Group.
That's it.
Yeah. So all of you should check out Iron Forge Consulting Group, by the way. Because Jonathan won't pimp himself, but I will.
And there's a place I think you can find his classes listed.
I think so.
What's the name of
that?
That
place called Bulletin.net.
Bulletin.net.
You can check him out.
Where he lists all of his classes.
Yeah.
We don't self-promote enough sometimes.
Yeah, well, you have to.
But no, Jonathan actually does a really great course on Stop the Bleed, and I enjoyed it immensely. But that is a really great segue because, like you said, like there are some, and this is my takeaway from like some of this trauma stuff, especially like the lethal trauma triad, right? Yeah. Is some of this starts getting really complicated, and not that I like to dumb everything down, but sometimes it's nice to have like a home, like something that you can hang your hat on
for sure.
Where it's like, hey, I'm gonna, if shit starts getting too complicated, I'm going to fall back on my training and like look for the things that I can, like what's important now, the John Farnhamism that we like to.
What's going to kill you right now?
So, I think that kind of brings us into bleeding.
Yeah.
Right.
Bleeding, yes.
Like the actual act of like, well, what are we looking for? What are we seeing? Like what's happening to the body? Right.
Well, if there's a fountain of red stuff blowing out of somebody, then it's obvious.
Like how big of a fountain? Like you're talking like a fountain in a bird bath or like Trevi fountain?
No, I'm thinking more like a fountain in front of like a house. They have that fountain. It's got like a decent flow coming out of it.
Like we talking like
a city fountain,
like opening of the elevator in what's that movie? The Shining.
Yeah, exactly.
Where
it starts and all of a sudden. Yeah, exactly.
That's a lot of blood.
If you see that active pressure, where you see almost like it's a beat that's forcing the pressure of the blood out of the body, that has to be addressed now, like yesterday.
Yeah,
like 20 minutes ago.
So let's talk. So we mentioned before there were some anatomical things, right? So when it comes to bleeding, they can come from different places.
Yes.
Right. Number one, I think the one that we're most familiar with is the bleeding that comes from what type of vessel?
An artery.
Arterial bleeding.
Yes.
Right. That's the typical one where, and just to kind of like dig into this as well, when it comes to like primary assessment in EMS, this is the thing that, while the typical mantra is ABCs, the airway, breathing, circulation, you'll often see the X added before the ABC for exsanguination, especially when it comes to trauma. Like that's the first thing you really should be looking for. The arterial bleeding is that X. It's like the most typical thing that's, or probably one of the fastest things that somebody can die from.
Yes.
In a traumatic situation.
Yeah. And it's also one of those things that like intervention to that is at times very straightforward.
Right. So you cut a major vessel, one of the major arteries in the body. How long do you have?
I think it's a minute and a half.
Yeah, 2 to 3 minutes.
2 to 3 minutes.
From a femoral injury, you can lose a lethal amount of blood in 2 to 3 minutes. And that's not like typical healthy adult male body holds 5 liters of blood, roughly. And so when people talk about bleeding out, a lot of people think, oh, that's your entire blood volume. No. We're talking a lethal amount is like 40%.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
40% of your blood volume. So 2 liters. And that is absolutely down the path of being lethal, probably going to be lethal. So the sooner we can control a bleed, the better off we're going to be. But
exactly.
yeah. 2 to 3 minutes from a femoral artery.
Yep. And we're talking the femoral artery, brachial artery, the aorta, like, arterial, or the carotid. the carotid artery.
Yep.
Like, these are the things that's like, when you're talking extremities, like, those are the things that are most likely to get damaged or have holes in them. Like, because our arms stick out from our body, they get hurt a lot. You might start seeing that arterial bleeding happening from limbs. Right. But like, the big thing is, it's usually, like, especially when we're talking about an artery, it's under pressure.
Yeah.
It's the Freddie Mercury of
it's bright, it's bright, it's out there, it's under pressure.
Yeah, it's usually bright red because it's oxygenated. And it spurts. You mentioned before, like it will likely spurt in the conjunction with a heartbeat, right?
For sure.
So the arterial bleed is like the first and foremost thing where you're like, hey, we need to pay attention to that. What about venous?
Well, I mean, it's not going to have the pressure that arterial bleeds have.
But can you die from a venous wound?
It's still going to get rid of your blood volume.
Yeah, sure. Like
100%.
It just may not happen as fast.
Exactly.
Just because it's not under pressure doesn't mean that a venous wound won't ooze out long enough. And think about it this way too. And this is how I try to like wrap my head around this. Cause like we're EMS now. Like, it's not like we're the, like, it's great to know this stuff as like, oh, it happens and we're there. We happen to be on scene, or we happen to see somebody get hurt. We can be a good Samaritan bystander, or no longer a bystander, but somebody to help. Right.
Yeah.
But now it's EMS. Like, we're 6 minutes out.
Yes.
Right.
Like,
at best.
At best.
Like, when we get there, if there was an uncontrolled arterial bleed,
they're dead.
Most likely they will have expired.
Unless we have a civilian intervention.
Or they know how to apply pressure themselves, or give some sort of intervention. Hopefully that's not the case, but like, the things that we may see are things like venous bleeding, where they've lost a lot of blood, where it's just pooling, and they're on the verge of losing enough where that is as serious as an arterial bleed. Just didn't take as long. So I think that, like, especially from our standpoint, like, we may run into that, and it's some people just don't understand how dangerous bleeding can be, which is amazing to me, because it's one of those things that, like, you're instinctually driven to keep within your body at all times.
Yes.
But some people do not freak out when they see their own blood. Like, they'll just keep bleeding, and they're like, it'll stop eventually.
They're not wrong.
Well, yeah,
it will stop eventually.
All bleeding stops eventually.
Exactly.
It does.
It does. Like, I heard it. One of the guys I was on shift last night was telling me about a call from the night before, where there was an older lady who, like, she didn't even call the ambulance. Her son called. He's like, I'm concerned. My mom's like got a little bit of bleeding going on. And like, okay, so they drive over there. It's like, and they get there, and it's a bloodbath. Like, she had some sort of gastrointestinal bleeding, like, and there was a trail going from the bathroom to the toilet to the bed to the living room, and it was just like, how much, like, you need to go to the hospital now.
Okay, if you have a trail,
I know,
of blood behind you, that should tell you that this is serious.
Yeah,
I mean, I have ran that exact call, and I mean, like, that guy was not for this world for very long.
It's just a flesh wound.
He ended up getting blood en route on the helicopter. So I mean, like it's like you're talking about a trail from the bedroom to the bathroom back to the living. I've ran that exact call, and it's that happens. People just
That's one of the crazy things. Like, you'd think that people would be like,
you would think,
oh, I'm calling 911. Like, if I see any blood, I'm like, come get me, please. I will drive myself.
If you can tell what snacks I went to go eat in the kitchen by the trail that is left of anything coming out of my body, I don't care what it is. I need to call an ambulance.
Yeah.
I don't care what the fluid is. If you can follow me by it, then this is a problem.
Yeah. So venous bleeding can be an issue.
Yeah.
Like the longer term stuff takes a little longer, but can be just as serious as arterial bleeding. And then there's one other form of like kind of external bleeding, the capillary bleeding, where it's like that's your typical cut.
Like that one that probably needed stitches that happened.
Yeah, it's not oozing per se. It's just it
annoying.
Has bled. It may be a little oozing, but like the clotting is doing the job that it needs to do, and it's working. Right. Or a simple small bandage, Band-Aid, or whatever. That's kind of helping with the clotting, and it's successful in it. But it's not something that it's like directly leaking or being expelled from a vessel. It's kind of coming through the capillaries of the skin, and it's much slower. And
I mean, Jonathan, you can weigh in on this, but like, I guess the only time that something like that is really a concern is if they're on blood thinners. Like if it's an oozing wound, I mean, at that point, if they left it alone long enough, maybe.
Well,
blood thinners is an issue with any type of bleeding, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some things that maybe don't seem like a big deal, but then like when we start adding factors into it, they become more of a big deal.
I was just saying, blood thinners really probably fall into that triad we were talking about too, in terms 100%. Of coagulopathy.
They do,
because it directly is doing that.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
We're trying to prevent a medical issue related to clots, but in trauma, we absolutely want those clots to be able to form, and you're unfortunately taking medicine that is inhibiting that.
Yeah, and if you want to learn more about blood thinners, I think it might have been the episode before this one, or maybe before that. We had an episode on renal and hematologic emergencies, where we did a deep dive into blood thinners. That was the medical term of the week for that week, which was really interesting because like that was it's nice how that one flows into this one, because and we should mention, like, especially when it comes to trauma, like, blood thinners are a huge red flag.
They are something that you have to identify that this person is taking.
Every time.
Yes.
Like, you should be asking about them.
Yes.
They are like, and they are like in most protocols, like if somebody has any form of trauma plus the blood thinners, it automatically elevates that to a higher level call. And it's usually something where it's like, hey, get ALS here right away. Like, I need them here. So definitely, I'm glad we brought up blood thinners, because that's
well, I'm sure all these people listening are faithfully watching every episode.
Oh yeah, for sure,
and remembering every detail of every one of them,
going along with us week by week, getting the full ride, as they say. But yeah, so we've got those different types of bleeding. Obviously, the things we look out for most, and we mentioned this before, the X in the ABC is the extreme hemorrhage, right? Massive hemorrhage, which is also the very first thing in a similar protocol to ABC.
It's funny how that works. It's like it all is tied together.
If anybody's ever done March, the MARCH protocol, it's the same thing. The first letter in there is M for massive hemorrhage. That's the number one thing we look out for, because we can affect change. We can give an intervention right away and save someone's life by stopping bleeding.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much, I think it's a standard for any one of those instructions. If you're talking about stop the bleed of any kind, like that's number one.
Let's talk about that for just a second. not necessarily March, but like, and there's a whole bunch of mnemonic devices, right? We're talking about XABC.
Yep.
I've seen it flip to where it's CAB or CAB.
CAB. Yep.
Right.
Which I don't
so
like, but
what we're dealing with is what is going to kill somebody the fastest. What is the most lethal thing in the immediate moment? Well, uncontrolled bleeding in trauma is the most immediate thing that is life threatening.
Yep.
Like I can fix somebody's airway all day long, but if I don't have any blood volume for them to carry oxygenated blood,
what's the point?
Yep.
Then I could have the most beautiful, perfect airway secured, but if there's no blood volume, then there's no oxygen getting where it needs to get. So
and time too is a factor. Like like you mentioned, 2 minutes, right? Is bleeding out from a femoral artery. Well, how long can we typically live without oxygen?
3 minutes.
About 3 minutes.
3 to 4 minutes. Right.
Yeah, and then the idea is that maybe you even still have some oxygen floating around your bloodstream.
Right.
Under normal circumstances, right? Not necessarily in this trauma, but like under normal circumstances. But yeah. So,
but in the numbers, you're looking at, okay, this thing can kill in a couple of 2 minutes.
This can kill.
I'm talking roughly like 2 minutes here, 4 minutes here.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I need to take care of the thing that'll kill them in 2 minutes first, because then I still have 2 minutes to fix the other thing.
Exactly.
And hopefully have enough time stacked together that I can take care of both things. But if I worry about the airway first, then it doesn't matter because they've already bled out.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's managing time.
It's triage.
Yeah.
Like what's the most important thing right now?
Yeah, not just for multiple patients, but in that one patient, what do I need to worry about first?
Yes.
Right.
No, I think that's and that's really the crux, like the big takeaway of this whole chapter for us as EMTs in the traumatic bleeding is really that primary assessment.
Yep.
Like the XABC, the CAB, the MARCH, the LPQRST,
the 5 Bs,
the 5 Bs. I don't know. Just start throwing out different. I love the alphabet soup of EMS. Like it's
100%.
But yeah, like we hold true to those things. It's the number one thing we look for.
Yep.
Now there's some complication factors in that massive hemorrhage or the extreme bleeding. Especially when it comes to difficult spaces.
Exactly.
And we're going to get into this because our tool of the trade this week, when we get to it, is dealing with one of them. Junctional tourniquets. And bleeding on an extremity, we'll talk about that in a second, maybe a straightforward fix. But when you have bleeding in difficult spots, like inside of the armpit or inside of the groin, that's when it gets really difficult to get enough pressure and things to stop that bleeding, where you need to look out for those. That's like, if arterial bleeding from a limb is like the number one thing you look for, looking for sneaky spots that can have that arterial bleeding should be the immediate next step. Is like, where else are they bleeding from?
Yeah, because you could easily get sucked into that obvious thing that's like, waving in your face. This is what I have to deal with. And that sneaky thing is going to wind up, catching you in the end.
Yeah. And those sneaky spots are often like hidden.
Yeah.
Like under clothes. Like we do, like the junctional spaces, the armpits and the groin space. Mm-hmm. Those are usually covered in multiple layers of clothes.
They are.
So even if they do have some sort of injury that's an arterial bleed, it's not going to be spurting.
Right.
Because it's going to be hitting the clothes, and it may be pooling, and but you're not necessarily going to get that like flying against the wall type of blood spray.
That's why you got to get them trauma naked. You got to get the clothes off so you can see what you're working with.
Which is why you should really carry a pair of X shears. Another shameless plug for people that we like. Yes. I have them on me right now.
You do.
Do you have yours?
I don't.
Oh, come on, man! You got to have your X shears.
I don't have my X shears on me. My wife packed them, and I haven't found them yet.
You haven't found them?
No, she packed them.
Oh, that's a fail.
I know. Trust me, I'm aware.
But I think these trauma shears are a big part of trauma.
For sure.
Revealing.
Especially the mini ones. The mini ones are really nice.
Mini ones are nice.
Yeah, they're very nice.
So we've got some things. Those don't go in your pocket.
But now I have a pair of shoes.
Oh, man. Like we're looking for that other signs of bleeding because there may be major traumatic bleeding that isn't necessarily in your face.
And it could be multiple spots. Like, especially talking about gunshots, like there could be multiple spots. So you may see that obvious spot that's in the brachial artery or in the femoral artery, and you take care of that problem. But, was there a weird exit wound? Was there another shot placement you didn't see? Like, you've got to get all that clothing off so you can see what you're dealing with.
Yeah. Like knife fights.
Oh, no. Yeah.
There's never just one wound in a knife fight.
No. I'd rather get shot.
Yeah, me too.
I'm good.
All right. So, that's what we're looking for. We're like, we've got major bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
We've got difficult situations in bleeding.
What do we do?
But what do we do?
What do we do?
This is where it gets fun because these are some of the things that we've been doing for a while in terms of some of the previous training that we've done. But it might be a little bit different because in EMS, like they do have a different emphasis on some things.
They really do.
And just to throw this out there, I think the tactical medicine world, and I'm not saying it's wrong by any means, has a much higher emphasis on tourniquet usage than the EMS world.
Yep.
I'm not going to lay my opinion down on which one I think is correct. I think people would probably figure that one out. But tourniquets are often like, a first line of defense in tactical medicine.
Sure.
For a reason.
Maybe because they've proven to be really good sources of stopping traumatic bleeding.
We have 20 years of clinical evidence of their efficacy. So I think it has been flushed out enough that if you have an external bleed on an extremity, like I think the focus of that tourniquet is imperative.
Right. Now we'll talk about tourniquets in a second, but in EMT
EMS,
school,
yes.
What was the first line of defense that we learned for bleeding?
Direct pressure. Get your hands on it.
With a gloved hand.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make sure that we're at least paying homage to the glove.
And like in that case, like if you're on an ambulance, like what I have been doing, and again, I'm just starting in this, but like those gloves are on my hand on the way to the call.
Yes.
Because that way I don't have to think about it. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to try and unroll them as I'm stepping out of a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
They are on my hands before I ever get out of the ambulance.
Yep. Yeah. So the gloved hand thing, and this is where it's like, hey, you're doing this as a profession, as a professional, right? You should have those gloves on.
For sure.
And the reason you should have those on is because if immediately you step out of that truck and somebody needs help, like an immediate intervention and bleeding, you don't have time to put those gloves on.
Right.
Like, get them on.
Yep.
So direct pressure with a gloved hand.
Yes.
And by the way, for anybody out there listening that may be taking a test soon, that is a quite common test answer.
It is.
It is.
In the
100%.
NREMT stuff is like direct pressure with a gloved hand for bleeding is like first line of defense.
Yes.
Well, and we talked a little bit about tourniquet applications and that sort of thing. I think direct pressure can go literally hand in hand with tourniquet applications.
Mm-hmm.
It is a direct pressure with a gloved hand while we're getting our tourniquet ready, right? There's no reason to let something free bleed until, in the meantime of putting a tourniquet on it.
Right.
We can still start to control that bleed with that direct pressure while we're putting that tourniquet on.
Right.
Or you see what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily... it shouldn't be a point of contention that direct pressure is listed first, right? Because with that gloved hand, we can start to apply some direct pressure.
I think the difference comes in the sense that in EMS, or at least the traditional like learning model, is that they're expecting you to give pressure with a gloved hand and then assess whether that is enough.
Yes.
Right.
And I think what we know and what we've learned is that you can tell right away whether or not that is something that is going to need a higher level of intervention.
Mm-hmm.
And you should not necessarily be just waiting to see if a gloved hand over an arterial bleed is enough. Like, okay, I'm going to put that there. That is a great form of slowing some things down, but I'm immediately going to what's going to be next.
And that goes into one of the things is like void spaces. So you have the leg, you have the thigh. You're putting direct pressure on that bleed, and maybe it's slowing, but it could be bleeding into that void space in the thigh. So, like, is it an intervention to give you time? Yes, but I do believe, like we had mentioned, like in tactical medicine, that emphasis on getting the tourniquet high and tight is in my mind, the way to go.
Well, yeah. And so,
but in EMS, there's procedures and protocols and everything else.
yeah, well, I mean, it's more about the testing, right? Like we're helping people get through the process. And that is one of the things that you will learn. And that gets emphasized very heavily is direct pressure with a gloved hand. Yep. I can't say it enough because I can't even tell you how many times I saw that question and answer in all this stuff. But so beyond the direct pressure with a gloved hand, and without belaboring it, obviously we're very familiar with tourniquets. Tourniquets have become a thing, very popular in today's world. Like they are very effective at what they do, especially a windlass tourniquet, on an extremity. How do we put them on?
High and tight.
High and tight, right?
That depends on the situation, but yes, high and tight. If we're in an active situation where there's a threat, high and tight, or if we can't immediately expose the wound, high and tight, it's one of the things that I teach is high and tight. But and this is me putting my teaching hat on for a second. Yeah. I want to emphasize, like, if we have one casualty and there is no active threat and I can immediately visualize that wound, then I can, start to use my other application method, which is 2 to 3 inches proximal to the wound site, and above it. And, that's definitely an option as a first line, like go-to thing, if I meet those criteria. But if I can't meet those criteria and there's, multiple casualties and there's, still an active threat going on, high and tight is kind of the thing. Cause this is something I want to save us some heartache and some headache later if somebody's listened to this because, they said this and this is not what I was taught. It's like, no, okay. There's like some nuance to all of this.
Yeah. Differing schools of thought.
For sure.
The one thing that is universal though, is that the tourniquet goes above the wound.
Yes.
Proximal.
Absolutely.
Proximal of the wound, right?
Between the wound and the heart.
Right.
It's got to go there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if there's anything you need to fall back on, always remember that.
Yes.
But there are differing schools of thought. I think the three of us come from a very much like, hey, high and tight mentality where, at its base level, that's going to fix most of the problems all the time, without having to diagnose anything or visualize or figure out some of those nuances. So, but it's to say that tourniquets are a great tool, and there's really like it's the best line of defense for those types of like extreme bleeding in the extremities. Right,
and I think the important thing too is like get training on whatever one you're using.
Yeah.
Like because they're all a little different. They all have their little nuances to it. It doesn't matter what one you choose. Get training on the one that you choose, the one you have in your service. So that you can do it without having to think about it and decide how you're going to use it in the moment.
I was super excited in our EMT class when the last 5 minutes of class, they were like, hey, we need to fill the last 5 minutes. And they literally threw tourniquets out to everybody. They're like, put tourniquets on. I was like, oh, I know how to do this. And then we never touched tourniquets again.
Ever again.
The whole rest of the class. I was like, what was this? Like
me and him are on and we're like
we got like 4 tourniquets on each limb. Like, hey, we're good. Like what do we do next? Okay. So direct pressure, tourniquets.
Yes.
What's next?
Wound packing.
Wound packing.
Direct pressure into the wound.
Yeah, it's the same thing as direct pressure. You're just doing it from the inside.
Yes.
What are we packing with?
Gauze.
Or
hemostatic agent.
Yeah. Or, preferably both.
Yeah.
Right.
You have it.
So the wound packing is a very important step in terms of something that is a puncture wound in that is not in the abdominal or thoracic space, right?
Correct.
Like because we don't pack wounds there. But if it's in an extremity, we pack those wounds.
Yes.
Because direct pressure from the outside may not be enough.
Right.
If we can get pressure pushing out from inside the wound and pressure pushing in from out, like there's nowhere for blood to go. You will make sure to turn all that stuff off.
Exactly.
So wound packing is a very important thing. That's where we're also using some things where we could be using things like hemostatic agents. Right. I think we've talked about hemostatic agents on this podcast before. If not, we will be. It's things like Chitosam from our friends over at Sam Medical or Combat Gauze. trauma dress. I forget some of the other ones. But it's essentially like dressings, gauze pads, or sometimes it's just material itself that encourages clotting.
Yep.
And if you ever watch videos of these things, it is incredibly impressive how quickly
it really is.
They promote clotting. And the trick is you're putting that in the wound first.
Correct.
To get that as close to the vessel that is bleeding, because that is what's going to encourage that vessel to clot. And then you're taking, we're EMTs, right? So we have plenty of things at our disposal, hopefully a ton of gauze, like bags full of gauze.
You can never have enough gauze.
You can never have enough gauze. Gauze is like, you will pack a ton of gauze into big open wounds.
We had a class that demonstrated that very interface that you're never going to have enough.
Yeah. So packing that wound meticulously, keeping pressure in. We're not going to get it. We can't. Yeah, there's technique to it. Yep. I'm sure there's plenty of videos out there, but you want to make sure that you're keeping pressure on that gauze as you're pushing in. It's not releasing pressure as you're going, so that it's not going to encourage the bleeding to keep happening. You keep pressure in there. You pack that wound with as much gauze or hemostatic gauze as possible, and
then you just let it go, right?
And then you just let it go, and it just falls right out. It's fine. No, exactly. Then you wrap it. Then you have to bandage the wound itself.
Yes.
Usually with something like
a pressure bandage.
An
Israeli bandage.
An Israeli bandage. An Olays is really. I like Olays bandages.
Nice. H bandage.
Yep. H bandages from H&H Medical. I think there's so a ton of them.
There.
There's so many.
Yeah, so many out there.
But essentially,
the big thing is whatever you're going to carry or whatever you've got available to you, you should figure that out and practice with one of them, because the pressure adjunct on those is going to be a little bit different depending on the device. That's the big thing.
And really, they're two there's two main components to them. There's a big trauma pad, like a looks like a diaper material. It's that like big old absorbent pad. And usually like ace bandage wrap.
Yep.
Like some form of those two things hooking together, and then maybe some sort of plastic pressure device on
sometimes
there,
Velcro.
which you have to learn how to hook or loop around or wrap on top of in a particular way to add additional pressure onto the wound itself. But those are very effective tools for like closing, or not closing, but kind of capping a packed wound.
Yeah, giving your wound packing the best chance it can have to keep that direct pressure and hopefully form a clot.
Because you've just added a bunch of stuff into the wound, pushing out on it, and then this big compressive bandage goes on the outside and then sucks everything back in, and like you've got so much pressure going on there. Usually you can, like, that may be even enough that you don't, like, even on a major wound, like something like a femoral bleed, you might even be able to completely occlude blood flow with just wound packing and a trauma dressing, a pressure dressing, that it may not need a tourniquet, but you're still going to want to use a tourniquet anyway.
And like what Jonathan said, the main thing is train on what you have, whatever it is, whatever your service is using. You don't want the first time you have to use that to be that stressful situation and you're trying to figure it out on the fly.
I have another shameless plug.
Oh.
So on the Iron Forge Consulting Group YouTube channel, we have a video demonstrating how to properly pack a wound.
Nice.
That video has been up for a couple years now. So if you're looking for some additional material, maybe we can link it in our video or in this, or if you just want to check out the Iron Forge Consulting Group YouTube channel, it's on there. It's available as an additional resource if you just kind of want some clarification.
Yep. It's good stuff. I've learned from Jonathan first. We both have learned from Jonathan firsthand.
I've only gotten a short block of instruction so far. It was very nice. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed his teaching method. I think anyone that decides to train with him or watch the channel will enjoy the content that is provided.
So those are the things that we can do for external bleeding.
Yes.
Right? Are there any special situations, things that maybe fall outside of that category that aren't as easy to address?
Well, there's internal bleeding.
Internal bleeding's a big one,
which is a mess.
How about the head?
Yeah, the head injury, the scalp wound that looks like it's killing them, and really it's just superficial.
Like, should we pack head wounds?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You got to get all the pressure into the head.
Fill all of the holes.
Yeah, like mouth,
just
nose,
Negative.
ears.
negative,
Negative.
negatory.
Max is
Good buddy.
joking around.
I am indeed.
Warning. Warning.
I actually have a question for Jonathan. So one point of instruction he gave at one point was the idea of packing a neck wound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So
you can do
is
that.
there any time you would or you would not want to do that?
So, man, there's so many different wound. It depends.
Gotcha.
That's what I'm going to leave you with. It depends. And I say that because there's so many different patterns of wounding that could occur. Right. If again, like Mike said earlier, if we get into the thoracic cavity, we want to avoid that. But there are the potential exists for needing to pack a neck wound, and then in addition to that, put an occlusive dressing over that, because we may actually be down enough with that wound channel into that thoracic cavity that we don't want to introduce any air into it. Right.
Also, for like a jugular vein injury, this is one that stuck in my head too. You definitely want to make sure that you're using the occlusive dressing for something that there, because the veins have a negative pressure in them, can suck air into it. So you can get an air embolus from like basically allowing air into it, like a jugular vein injury. But we are going to get into neck injury, like neck trauma at some point too. And that's kind of covered in there, but occlusive dressings, the big one for there, which we haven't really gotten into in this because we're talking about more about external bleeding. But there's differing schools of thought, like in terms of packing it. I think the number one thing is the reason why it would be iffy is because there's other stuff in the neck that can be compromised by packing, like the airway, right?
Yes.
So I would say it would probably be dependent on whether or not it's going to be.
It depends.
Yeah. Like if it's going to compromise the trachea, we're not going to do that.
Right.
But so like the head injury stuff, like bleeding from the nose, the ears, we don't pack those. Just something to kind of call out for this in terms of like we let that bleed because we don't want to increase intracranial pressure.
Right.
Like that's a bad thing. So if that's bleeding, let it bleed. Try to manage it, but we don't plug the ears and nose.
No, that was a joke. That was a funny.
No, I know. Yeah.
In case anyone's wondering.
And those are things that could be indicative of skull fractures too. So things that like, things that we want to keep an eye out for that can help, with the definitive care down the line. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah. The term loose, bulky dressing, right, over top of skull injuries or head injuries like that, and they will bleed a lot. We kind of touched on this idea of distracting injuries, right, where we might have like a more lethal injury that's maybe not as obvious, but then we've got this, because facial injuries and head injuries that are not necessarily the external head injuries. Let's put it that way. Because the head has so much vasculature going on, they will bleed and look extremely severe, but they can be a distracting injury from our ultimate goal of maintaining blood volume. So it's just one of those things that you have to be aware of. Yes, we need to deal with that because at some point all bleeding can become lethal bleeding, but it can be more of a distracting injury than anything else initially.
Yep.
And then along with the head, one of the ones that we really
surprised the hell out of me.
Well, I mean, I've had them many times in my life.
I've had them, but not the idea that they were lethal.
Yeah. So the trivia term, it would have been probably a good medical term.
It would.
Epistaxis.
And we probably should touch on that maybe on a later trauma thing, like to really go into it.
Well, yeah, we can, because it was a major. It was actually one of the scenarios that is possible for our PA practical exam. Is epistaxis, nosebleeds.
Yep.
Right.
And you know what? I didn't even put 2 and 2 together at the time. Epistaxis was like one of my first calls ever. And I think I talked about it on the podcast. And I was like, oh yeah, I totally forgot that like one of the first things I ever saw was epistaxis and the nursing home dealing with it in the exact wrong way of them having the patient lay in a semi-Fowler position with her head back on her bed.
Because for years, that is all I've ever seen of treatment for it is the same thing on repeat.
Yeah. Well, because you don't want to bleed everywhere. You want to make sure all that goes right down into your belly. Keep it nice and close, you know?
People are more concerned about, I don't want to make a mess with this. Yeah. And it's like, that's the wrong mindset to have, right?
Very wrong.
Again, you don't want that blood going back down the back of the throat into the stomach, because eventually you're going to have too much blood in there and you're going to induce vomiting, and that's that's another potential issue for airway compromise.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the biggest thing is leaning forward, letting gravity take that blood out of the nasal passages. But yeah, we want to put that direct pressure on there.
Yep.
And lean forward and pinch. That's the easiest way to deal with it. Lean
as
forward
far
and
back
pinch.
on the nose as you can, where it's like squishy, right?
Yep.
But this is also one of those ones where, so I'm just going to go out and so my PA practical exam was epistaxis. So I was like, hey, I'm actually pretty familiar with this. Like, okay, leaning forward, pinching the nose, stopping the bleeding, making sure they're not tilting the head back, not putting the blood somewhere it didn't want to be, right? And then the practical skill that I had to show was suctioning. So using a portable suction device to help clean out the oropharyngeal airway, which we'll get into it in a later episode too, is like the proper techniques of suction. But all of those things come into play together to like, you may have to help somebody with their airway because of bleeding, because it may be getting all gunked up in there and things are getting in the way. And that's one of the big risk factors of tilting your head back is not just putting that blood into your stomach, but that can make you vomit too, which then compromises the airway further.
Into your lungs.
You can aspirate the blood.
Just bad news all the way around.
Yeah, nosebleed is... Yeah, like you think that it's innocuous, right? Like everyone has a nosebleed as a kid, but that
Apparently
can be
not.
bad.
Yeah, we had some horror stories. One of the instructors talking about it. I was like, oh my God. Like, I did not expect that.
With the proliferation of blood thinners, we already kind of touched on that. This is an avenue in which those blood thinners are going to be a detriment to us. And I mean, I've had folks where we've had them do the whole hold and pinch thing, lean forward and pinch all the way to the ER. And they ended up needing somebody to come in, a doctor to come in and cauterize that wound, as the means to stop it. And then even later, I've taken people back who've had that done, and then they had an instance of rebleeding with that,
right?
And same deal, right? So it can be again. Eventually, all bleeding can become lethal.
Yeah, I like the alternative way that they use to stop nosebleeds. Cocaine, apparently.
Hey, you feel good. You got some
no
energy.
Idea. Yeah.
You're ready to run a marathon. You're not bleeding anymore.
I can't believe there aren't more people going around like punching themselves in the nose. Like, I need the treatment
for a few grams in like a Narcan thing.
Yeah. I don't know if they do that anymore nowadays, but I heard that was a way of treating nosebleeds in the past.
It was a more entertaining time.
So actually what we have on several of the ambulances I work on, we have Afrin nose spray. Right? Most of the time it's prescribed because it's a vasoconstrictor, right? So it's constricts those vessels and opens up your airway if you're having some sort of stuffy head, stuffy nose kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, in this instance, we're giving the Afrin nose spray to induce that vasoconstriction to hopefully constrict those blood vessels to where they can form a clot and we can stop that bleeding.
Cool.
So, yeah.
All types of things. Like it's like the bleeding is a real issue. Like It's almost like you got to find all the ways to keep that stuff inside your body.
But the scariest for me is like the internal bleeding. Like that's one of those things.
Yeah, let's talk about that because that's scary.
So first of all, it's not the easiest thing to detect that it's happening. It's not obvious. It's not flowing out. You don't necessarily see it. Even after you've gotten them trauma naked, you might not see it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also something that we don't really have a lot of ability to intervene on.
It's true. I think the best we could do is suspect it,
Right.
and relay that to definitive levels of care, or if there's higher levels of care that are in the field, like getting somebody blood product can help with that too. But the internal bleeding is crazy because the body, it doesn't make sense because you're like, oh, well, the body holds blood, and if they're bleeding, the blood should come out of the body.
Right.
But it's really not, because it's almost like displacement where, like, okay, certain parts of the body hold blood, and then that blood can accidentally move to other parts of the body in spaces that don't normally hold things. And then that makes more space because then the space that was taken up by the blood is less. So it's so tricky because it could just move and you may not even have a lot of outward signs, but there are some that you can look out for. But the body can still hold on to it and you can die from bleeding without any outward signs of it.
And like with automobile crashes, it is one of those things where you have to be diligent about checking for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Like as fast as possible. And it could even be the thing that saved you or prevented injury that's causing the internal bleeding.
So Jonathan, I assume you've seen this a time or two.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of times, we'll get motor vehicle crashes and folks will be fine initially. They even wore their seatbelt, but then they start to get this bruising across their abdomen. And that's a big sign of something going on.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so they'll get this bruising, and oftentimes that is a liver laceration or maybe a ruptured spleen or something like that. And those things, they can induce, again, lethal bleeding, right? Lethal internal bleeding. That's one of the reasons I advocate for folks who've been in motor vehicle crashes to at least go get checked out. A lot of times these folks are up walking around, they're fine, but in a matter of hours or a couple days, they can bleed out.
Yep.
And so it's again, like we were saying, it's not necessarily something that's the most obvious, as if we had like some sort of laceration of the brachial artery, right? That's very obvious to us.
Yeah.
But that internal bleeding is not necessarily going to be as obvious. But yeah, I've seen that numerous times in my career where kind of hearing back after the fact, oh yeah, that person had a liver laceration following a motor vehicle crash. And it's like, that's one of the reasons I advocate for folks to go get checked out after that crash.
Mm-hmm.
My very first call was a multi-vehicle crash situation, and when I checked on the woman that was in the car, that was the first thing I looked for, because she was fine, she was alert, everything was above board, vitals were good, but she was very embarrassed to pull her shirt aside to let me see what was going on, and trying to keep her calm while doing that was an interesting balancing act.
Sure.
Yeah. So, the internal bleeding, there are some things we can look for.
Yeah.
Right. Like you'd mentioned bruising, Jonathan. I think that's in our textbooks, that was like the biggest one. Like bruising can be the problem with bruising is it could also just be bruising, like, surface level.
Right.
But the bruising can be a sign of something deeper. The one that always stuck out to me is like, okay, so if you have blood going into spaces that don't typically have blood in it, there may be some signs of that. So like a distended belly or distended abdomen, or like a tender abdomen, like those things where it's like, it could be signs that like, something's not going on. Like if all of a sudden somebody looks like they have like, a pregnancy belly in their guy, oh, there might be something going on there where there's more stuff going into that space that was there before. And then like, obviously I think bleeding from places that don't normally bleed, that's a big one too.
Yeah.
So, and kind of to, rep the idea of like, oh, the internal bleeding may not present immediately. There have been times where I've been called to people's residences and they've had some sort of traumatic injury that happened 2 or 3 days before. Right. And now we're starting to actually see those signs of that internal bleeding. Right. So, I mean, you may not be called to the scene of an accident. You may be called to somebody's residence for something else going on. And then you find out, oh, you had a motor vehicle crash a couple days ago. Oh, you had a fall a couple days ago. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think those are the things where it's like, it's hard. Like it's much harder to kind of find those things than it is like, hey, look at that. There's blood spurting and hitting the ceiling.
Yep.
But they're just as deadly, right? Like and that's why I think part of one of our biggest jobs is being an advocate, like for those patients and encouraging them to say, hey, listen, I know you don't want to go to the hospital. And it's, it's your choice, but like this is what it could be. Like you could have a serious injury. You could have, internal bleeding. Just let's go get you checked out at the hospital.
Exactly.
Like it's not that big a deal. Like, because patients often have so many concerns, like either it's anxiety driven or financially driven or all these other things that like these silent killers can really be something that's looming. And hopefully they're not what's actually happening. But I had a call once where, like we really had to assure a patient that like, hey, you were in a pretty bad car accident. Like both of your cars were totaled, and like, yeah, you walked out of the car. Yeah, you don't have any traumatic bleeding, but like you have a head wound, right? Like you got a bruise on your head. You've got a severely elevated blood pressure. That can be a sign of intracranial pressure. And like, that's not to scare you. It's just like, let's go get you checked out. Like, let's make sure that you're okay. And, advocating for them to go seek medical treatment where it's like, listen, you can worry about all the dollars and cents and stuff later. But like, I think I find that that's probably one of the biggest aspects of our job is helping people feel okay about getting more care.
And when you get that refusal, making sure they understand, listen, okay, you've decided you don't want to go to the hospital. You decided you want to stay home, that you're fine. Make sure they understand. Get the embarrassment and the shame out of the way of them calling you back.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Make sure that they understand, listen, if you need us, please call. Don't let embarrassment keep you from getting the care that you need, and in that way advocating for them that way too, because a lot of times it's like, well, I don't want them to come back. I mean, I told them I'm fine. Like get that thought process out of the way as much as you can so that they're comfortable calling you back if they need to.
Yeah. So internal bleeding, definitely one of those things that's harder to deal with. Although there are, like, I know if it seems like there isn't much we can do. There are some forms of internal bleeding which we can help with, I think, especially in traumatic injury where we have some sort of like musculoskeletal bleeding, like a open book fracture of a pelvis or even a femoral, a femoral break, where stabilizing the wound or stabilizing that body structure can help reduce additional damage and help, lessen the bleeding, especially like a pelvic fracture, right?
Sure.
If that's unstable and it's opening up more, it's going to bleed more. So things like pelvic slings, binding the pelvis, or even shameless plug, like the AAJT-S, which also doubles as a pelvic binder. Using tools like that to help bind the pelvis together can reduce the bleeding. Same thing with like, a traction splint for the femur. So like while the belly and the abdomen are harder to deal with, I think some of those other wounds, like unstable fractures, that's something that we can help with in terms of structure, like reducing the amount of bleeding, internal bleeding.
And with an internal bleeding, if you suspect that, basically you're treating for shock. I mean, that's the other treatment. It is basically doing the same process.
What do you mean?
Well, like our care for the internal bleeding, besides like the traction splint, is airway management, oxygen if indicated, prevent hypothermia. Like it's you're treating for shock.
Well, yeah, I mean, like there's some of those things are primary assessment stuff. So airway, making sure the airway is taken care of, but always falling back in the end to like making sure that they're also being treated for shock and any internal bleeding, lack of perfusion. So yeah, like there's a lot of things that we can do in that sense, and like always coming back to, well, if we suspect the internal bleeding, they are experiencing shock. Let's get them to a higher level of care.
Exactly.
Diesel therapy, right? Like, that's our bread and butter. Is like, we can always, like, our primary job is to get them to the hospital, right? So, always come back around to that.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've talked about things that we could do, some important things to keep in mind, especially when it comes to trauma, bleeding, shock, as we're paying attention to patients, maybe on transit or in transit to the hospital. That secondary assessment or the reassessment, trending is something that is very important to do in this stuff, because if we're talking about shock, if we're talking about compensation or decompensation, keeping an eye on those vital signs and how the patient is doing over time is super important to know how they're doing.
Yeah, and also be able to get the information to that care that you're going to, where it's the hospital or meeting up with ALS, like watching them and with the reassessments and how they're doing, what's getting worse, what's getting better, if they're stabilizing, like making sure they have all that information.
Yeah, and this is like the bread and butter of EMS, like tracking their heart rate. Like, is it trending up? Is it trending down? Breathing rate.
Yep.
Is it trending up? Blood pressure. Is that going down? Those are the things that it's like, hey, you may need to push harder on that long pedal on the right because the blood pressure is stopping or dropping. Not that we advocate for driving erratically or over the speed limit.
Never.
But
never.
That's a pretty good sign that like you need to hurry up.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, so I think that kind of brings us around to everything that we wanted to cover in terms of shock and bleeding. One thing to cover here, like I know we've mentioned this a million times in the past, children, like they are a part of this this equation, but they compensate differently than adults. They will compensate, longer, like their bodies will tolerate bad things happening longer, and then they will fall off the cliff. We've talked about that some.
Well, and one of the things about kids, Mike, we talk about pediatrics and neonates and that sort of thing. They don't have the blood volume that an adult,
exactly,
like an adult man has, right? So I mentioned 5 liters earlier, right? That's supposing that's a healthy adult male. Anybody in between that and a neonate may not have that same amount of blood volume. And we start looking at kids, right? They're going to tolerate less loss of blood in general, volume wise, than that 5 liters, right? Or that 2 liters when we talk about the lethal aspects of it, right? So we can think about like 40% of blood loss is lethal, right? What does that mean related to pediatric? Well, it's going to be dependent on their size. So especially when we start talking about them, we don't want to play around with any sort of bleeding. We want to control it as fast as possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, lots of things to think about in bleeding.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely, there's a reason it is the first thing in our primary assessment, and it's the X in XABC. It's the M in March. You got to look at, and luckily it's red and pretty obvious when it's happening.
Yeah. I mean, and understanding the mechanical functions, how it's operating, and how to best get it back into the flow that it needs to be.
So yeah, that's our topics for this week in terms of bleeding and shock, which leads us into
a particular tool,
our tools of the trade section, which is sponsored this week by Compression Works.
Yes.
Our friends over at Compression Works, great people. Again, I will promote our episode that is coming out in just a couple of days with Dr. John Kraushorn, the inventor of the AAJT-S. Great guy. The company is awesome. I got to meet them at EMS World Expo, and I had a great time at the booth. There's video on like the Ride Along Instagram channel of us applying the AAJT-S to a dummy.
You won.
I won the giveaway.
You did.
So that's where
why that's sitting.
That's why there's a AAJT-S sitting here.
Yes.
And that started a whole conversation with the company, and we like are huge proponents of the promise that this thing has for the emergency medical space.
100%.
Not to get too deep into it, you should absolutely listen to that interview. But there are so many things that are beyond just the kind of like EMT scope that that this particular device, the AAJT-S, has some really promising data where it is helping with like hemorrhaging in OBGYN situations around the world, like vaginal hemorrhaging or uterine hemorrhaging in postpartum, in trauma. They have some really interesting evidence or data that shows that using a abdominal tourniquet, shutting off blood flow to the lower half of the body, and then that in conjunction with using blood products can have dramatically good effects in trauma situations, in resuscitation.
Yeah, I mean you're conserving all that blood volume into your core.
Yeah, it makes so much sense when you think about it. It's like, oh, well, I would never think shut off half the body just so that I can keep the important parts running. But that's essentially what you can do with a device like this. Not to get too deep into this, because we want to talk about junctional tourniquets
in general,
in tonight's tool of the trade, because they are hugely beneficial tools, especially in trauma. But we were very honored that Compression Works was willing to sponsor tonight's episode for junctional tourniquets, and we happen to think that they've really knocked it out of the park with this abdominal aortic junctional tourniquet, which can be used in all the ways that we're going to talk about in junctional tourniquets, but also as an abdominal aortic tourniquet, which almost takes it a step further than just the typical kind of junctional tourniquet. But thank you, Compression Works, for doing that. And you should all check them out at compressionworks.com. It's fascinating stuff. Yeah. Like if you get into this stuff at all, you're getting nerdy about like, trends in EMS. I think this is going to be something that's like very, very soon to be like used a lot in EMS space. Yeah. Is the kind of aortic like junctional tourniquet. But why don't you tell us about what junctional tourniquets are, Max?
So it is, as we've talked about, life-saving medical device designed to control severe high-level hemorrhaging in areas where standard extremity tourniquets cannot be applied. So it's an area that is not easily touched by a traditional tourniquet. How they work, these devices consist of a belt or an inflatable target device, and it is placed over the artery proximal to the injury, inflated with a hand pump to stop the blood flow. So you have the ratcheting mechanism in these, as well as the ability to inflate that bladder and get direct pressure onto it. It's highly effective for junctional areas like the groin, the armpit, or the neck, which the neck was a surprising thing for me. I wouldn't have expected to use a junctional tourniquet in that area. I had seen enough with the groin and the armpit and demonstrations, but the neck was something that it was unexpected.
Well, yeah, I've seen, like, because you can use it as a pressure dressing basically up here, because you don't want to cut off blood flow to the head, but so it's not really, I guess it could be a tourniquet because you got two sides of it, but like sometimes you could use like a pressure dressing around the shoulder, but this could be used in like a tool like that with a belt,
with the idea that you have two supplies going to the brain. Yeah. So if you have good supply on one side, you have the ability to cut the other side off and stop the bleed.
Now, just as a caveat here, I just want to throw this out there. Make sure you're following your own protocols, because your protocols will dictate whether or not you should be using junctional tourniquets for different situations, which junctional tourniquets are used in your service, and all that stuff. And make sure you're using them like, that you're using the one that you're trained on and that your agency uses, because they're all slightly different, and they can be can be used in different ways.
Yes, and that is something that was stressed in everything that I read, is the idea that the one thing about these is they do require specific training. Mm-hmm. For the most part, with a windlass tourniquet, they're pretty much all the same in how they operate, but with the junctional tourniquets, it's a little different.
Yeah, they're all slightly different, and they may have some different features to them, but there are some commonalities to them.
Yeah, and there's some limitations. They got to remain precisely positioned and rechecked that the patient is moved. So if you do move the patient or the patient moves himself, you have to make sure that you still have it positioned over the area that you need it to be. So it's something that has to be constantly rechecked. If it's not put properly in the right position, it can have a failure. And again, like we said, training is really, really required. For application purposes, basically they have a belt, and it's placed around the pelvis or torso, depending on what area you're shooting for. All of them have a target device. Like this one here has a bladder. Some have a cup, and you're basically going to target that directly over the area that's bleeding.
Right. Instead of it being like a typical tourniquet where you're putting it above the wound and in between that and the heart, like a junctional tourniquet is really more of like a specific application of targeted pressure, right? Like right on top of where that space is, that junction.
And that targeting device, whether it's a bladder that inflates or the ratcheting mechanism, you're targeting that specific area until you see the bleeding stop, which is the same as a regular tourniquet, but it's a little bit more specific. Mm-hmm. And there's some history behind them. So they really became something that came out of the War on Terror, where they had wounds in junctional areas they really couldn't deal with easily. There's a famous scene in Black Hawk Down.
I was just going to bring up Black Hawk Down. It was a great movie.
With the death of Corporal Jamie Smith in Mogadishu, who bled out from a proximal thigh wound that a standard tourniquet could not control.
Right. So just to describe what happens in that movie, he had a wound, right, that was in his upper thigh.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And in that scene, he's bleeding out, and then there's a corpsman, or not a corpsman, a medic there that is trying to get into that wound with, I think it's a hemostat, right?
Yeah,
like
to try and clamp it off.
To try and clamp the wound off.
Yep.
Manually, which is, I mean, that can be done, but he could not get it because it was like slipping out of his hands. He couldn't get access to it. And eventually, just because they couldn't get to that vessel, the soldier died, right?
And I think that's the idea of the high and tight too, right, Jonathan? Because that artery can retract into the wound or into the limb.
Right.
So going high and tight allows you that if it has retracted, that you're still going to get, force on the vessel.
Well, let's not get too deep into the limb tourniquets, because like this is something that's like it's above where that limb tourniquet can get to. Right.
So yeah, the big thing about junctional tourniquets and that particular death of Corporal Smith, that medic was doing what he was trained to do at the time, and the junctional tourniquets weren't really a thing at this point in our history. And that entire incident of Black Hawk Down influenced where we are in tactical medicine in conjunction with the global war on terror.
Right.
But had they had a device, perhaps Corporal Smith's wound would have been survivable.
Right.
But that is a prominent scene in history and with the film and the book, as far as pop culture is concerned, kind of illustrating what we're talking about and why a junctional tourniquet would be important and is important as a tool in our arsenal. So, but yeah, it's one of the more well-known instances where a junctional tourniquet could have potentially saved a life.
Right.
And to throw this out there too, like it's not to say that a junctional tourniquet would have definitely helped in that situation, because that vessel may have been sucked up so high in there that it may not have been able to access it, which is one of the things that I find so interesting about something like the abdominal aortic tourniquet, and not to just throw this, like try and pigeonhole it in there, but I just think that there is a lot of promise in that, because if you're shutting off the aorta,
Yeah.
Right.
and you have a wound in either the pelvis itself, or deep in one of the, like the inguinal space, the in the hip, or the groin area, you're shutting off all of the trunk that goes down to
Right.
the pelvis. So it's to say that like there are many tools out there that can like, as long as you're getting above where that wound is,
Yes.
Right.
that's the important thing.
It is a general application of stop of blood flow.
Yeah.
That can stop your bleeding from your pelvis down.
Yeah.
So from 1993 to 2009, in 2009, the U.S. Army Medical Research and Material Command decided that this was a priority. So from 1993 to 2009, and then the first commercially approved one from the FDA was in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So by 2010, you saw them being approved by the FDA and going into use. And again, you saw a lot of use in combat in the global war on terror.
Yeah. This is one of the reasons why I was so excited about bringing in a sponsor for the junctional tourniquet space, because regardless of who like, there's a lot of companies out there that make, or maybe not a lot. There are some companies out there, like that make really good things that are fitting this role.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And in my brain, that scene in Black Hawk Down, like, is always sticking there. It's like, God, that must have happened a bunch of times.
Sure. And
like the fact that like something exists that can help with that particular type of wound is incredible.
Yep.
So I think it's a very specialized tool.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not, and it can be a bit bulky. Like it's definitely,
and it's cost prohibitive too.
Yeah. They can be quite expensive, but man, when you need it,
you need it.
Like there's no better tool for that need. Right.
And then 2016, 2021, they became a standard for many tactical EMS teams, like SWAT medical teams. So it kind of transferred from that military role into tactical medicine. In 2021, the Committee on Tactical Combat Casualty Care strengthened its recommendation for them. And by 2025, advanced agencies such as Rockwell EMS in Texas integrated devices like it, along with whole blood programs.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing that transition from the military applications to tactical medicine to EMS.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, everything we've gone over in Tools of the Trade, it has pretty much been the same path.
Yeah.
There have been some that have been instituted by, EMS organizations themselves, but a lot of it is driven through experiences they see in warfare.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the junctional tourniquet.
Awesome. Yeah, they're a great tool,
mm-hmm.
and we're very honored to have a company helping us out and sponsoring the junctional tourniquet for tonight on the Tools of the Trade.
Yeah, and the fact that we have an interview with the guy that invented it.
Yes.
And that personal contact, which that's the one thing I have to say through this whole thing that blows me away, is the willingness of companies and individuals to interact with us because they see their passion is getting this into the hands of people that need it.
Well, it's not just that, but like educating people that are new into the EMS space is a common trait that I've seen amongst a lot of people in EMS, is that they are willing to go above and beyond to help new providers.
Yep.
And people learn.
And I think that's one of my favorite things about this whole experience.
And that's medicine, that's science. Like that's what I love about this stuff.
Yep.
So, it's cool stuff, man. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. So that's our Tools of the Trade for this week, is the junctional tourniquet, which leads us to our final ultimate segment for tonight's podcast, and that is the student tip of the week from Jonathan Aldrich.
The student tip of the week. So one of the things that I love about trauma medicine, and that kind of drew me to it, I'm a very hands-on kind of guy, and the thing about trauma medicine is it is often a tactile skill that we can train and practice. So the student tip of the week is all these individual trauma skills from your trauma assessment, right? Finding injuries, to applying tourniquets, to wound packing, to pressure dressings, to applying junctional tourniquets. These are all tactile things that we can practice and train on and become more proficient at. And so student tip of the week is to train on these things as much as you possibly can, because when the time comes and you need to apply these skills, it's not the time to take the thing out of the package and that be the first time you ever laid hands on it. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. So, that's, again, like I said, it's one of my favorite things about trauma medicine is that tactile nature, and that we can practice it and practice it and practice it and become really, really proficient at it. And most of these skills are BLS skills. So as a BLS provider, it's something you can absolutely save somebody's life with and truly make a difference. So get out there and practice with these different techniques and different products. And that's the student tip of the week, is to be practicing these tactile skills in trauma care.
I love it.
Get out and use it.
That's it.
If you don't, what is it from 40 Oliver? Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
Yes. It 100% is true.
It's 100% true.
Yes.
But yeah, so I think that about covers everything this week for bleeding and shock. Please make sure that you are staying tuned for the rest of our trauma block.
That's coming. Awesome.
I mean, we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff. Like I said, next week is soft tissue trauma, and following after that is burns and head, neck, and spine, and all the stuff to fill your trauma needs.
Yep.
So we'll be going through that for a while, and then we still got plenty left to go. So welcome to the trauma block, and
we'll be here for a bit.
We will be here. We'll be living it. We'll be living in the trauma block for a while. But thank you all for taking the ride with us. We love having you here, and we'll see you next time on the ride along. This podcast is for educational and storytelling purposes only. It is not medical advice or official EMT training. Always follow your accredited instructors and local protocols.
Heartbeats racing.